Welcome to Voiceover, Movies That Move Us. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark that resulted in cinematic epiphanies. And it's not always the movie you'd expect. Today, we're discussing another novel adaptation, this time The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Originally published in 1982, the book won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and the National Book Award. It's a book of letters from the main character Celie to God as she tries to understand the brutality of her life. We'll be talking about that brutality in the interview, so be aware that some of our conversation might not be appropriate for young listeners. The trajectory of the film is to witness Celie's growth from victim to survivor to a member of a thriving sisterhood. I'm going to lay out our cast characters to clear up any later confusion. Celie, played by Whoopi Goldberg, has a sister named Nettie. They both escape their abusive stepfather when he marries 15-year-old Celie off to Mr., played by Danny Glover, because Mr. needs someone to clean his house and mind his children. Nettie is forced out of Mr.'s house and disappears for most of the film. Mr. has a hapless son named Harpo, who marries Sophia, played by Oprah Winfrey in her first film role. Mr. also has a longtime girlfriend named Shug, and Shug becomes Celie's friend and rescuer. The film was produced by Quincy Jones and directed by Steven Spielberg. The screenplay was adapted by Menno Meyjes, though Walker had final script approval. My guest today is Brian McLaren, author, activist, and public theologian. I've read his Faith After Doubt, which I completely recommend, and his most recent book, The Last Voyage, which is a sci-fi novel, the first of a trilogy. In fact, we're going to start our conversation by discussing that sci-fi novel. We talk about a lot of plot points today, but as you can imagine, this film is about growth, redemption, and reunion, so I bet you can guess how the movie ends. But if spoilers bother you, watch the movie and come back for your listen. Stick around after the conversation for more movie recommendations.
The Last Voyage is the first in a trilogy. The second one is called The Great Rift, and it's already finished. It'll probably be out in about a year. And then I'm finishing up the third one now, and it's called Ethnogenesis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So this book was really, my husband and I are huge sci-fi fans.
Oh, great.
We love sci-fi. And so I was excited to read your book, and you introduced a topic that I don't think had ever occurred to me, which is what happens when people are going to save the species and then don't feel any hope or don't feel any purpose. And so the big issue with a colony that's being set up on Mars, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have that
That's right. Yeah.
Is that people are committing suicide. And not even like well, you should talk about it. It's your book. Talk about that.
Sure. Well, the setting of the book is in the near-term future, so about 30 years from now. And things, basically, the future I'm describing in this book is a projection of present trends. So if we just took present trends, this is a reasonable imagination of what the world might look like. Yeah. The world is ruled by oligarchs. Governments still exist, but they're just kind of a facade for oligarchs. And two of the oligarchs realize what a mess things are, and they decide to team up to establish a colony on Mars as a kind of assurance colony. That's a term that's used in biology, that if a species is about to go extinct, you establish assurance colonies in captivity. Well, in this case, it's not just for one species. They say we have to have a backup plan if the worst case scenarios unfold. And so they decide, let's get this colony going, and they send several robot crews to do all the advance work. And then humans begin to arrive. And several years into it, people just start checking out, and nobody can understand why, and they can't stop it. The people on Earth say, we have solved all the technical problems, which, by the way, I should say, anyone who really studies Mars, it is not a very hospitable place. And anyone who thinks it's going to be easy to live there, it's kind of delusional. But they can say that we have solved all the technical problems, but we haven't solved the human problem and issues of meaning. And so the Last Voyage They send some artists, and they send someone who's kind of a theologian, and some people who are really focused on animals, because part of their theory is that it's that human beings don't exist alone. We need plants and animals, not just to eat, but to interact with, because we evolved together. We're part of this living community on Earth. And so all of that different thinking about what it means to be human is part of what we get to explore in the book.
You set up an antagonist. The theologian's father is
Yes.
the antagonist. He was really hard for me to like in this book. But she's sort of pushing back against this idea that essentially all the decisions should be made through. There's an acknowledgement we need data. We definitely need science. We should be paying more attention to the science than we have been.
Yes.
But there's also this idea of like we don't create meaning only through science. Like science shows us the how, but we need something that shows us the why. Do I have that?
I think you said that really well. Yeah, exactly right. And this is part of our problem. I think, it's one of the tensions I think all of us feel in, the 2020s that is played out in the 2050s. We have religions that don't respect science. And then we have science that often then just throws all religion out and acts as if there's no value to looking to the deeper questions of meaning and purpose and value and exploring what we might call inner space as well as outer space. And so all of those dramas are played out between this daughter, Eve, and her father, Colfax. One of the things you start to feel when you imagine a colony of roughly 200 people, you can't afford to throw anybody away, especially when your numbers are going down through self-selection, let's put it that way. And so Eve feels this disdain from her father, yet she can't just throw him away. And so that's part of the tension of the relationship as well.
It's interesting to watch their dynamic play out. I know why I start sci-fi novels. I never finish the ones that I start writing, but so how is it that you decided I want to tell this story in this way, and then what kept you writing?
Well, I've written a little over 20 books, and before this, 3 of them were fiction, but I hadn't written a book of fiction in 20 years. So several years ago, the idea for this novel came to me, especially when I realized the degree to which Earth's political and religious systems are in many ways bowing the knee to the wealthiest people in the world. In some ways, I think, Heather, was a little bit like a scientific experiment. You kind of want to set up some characters and set up some conditions, and you run it through your imagination to see what might happen. So that's how this started.
I have friends who worked for the USGS and flag staff. They were part of the group who ran the Mars rover. And
great.
Yeah, so I thought of them immediately. Like, they might enjoy this novel. So my other question is, do you have any science fiction authors that you particularly love? For me, it's Ursula Le Guin. Love her.
Goodness. Yes. Well, I mean, here's where it gets hard. If I mention somebody, I'll feel I'm insulting all the other people I love who I didn't mention. But Octavia Butler,
yes,
I'm a big fan
you
of.
reference the sower, don't you, in the parable of the sower in the book, I think.
I think I do. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I loved science fiction as a teenager, but looking back, all the science fiction I was reading then, they were kind of pulp. But I had sort of a rediscovery of science fiction through a writer named Orson Scott Card, who you may be familiar with.
I sure do know that name.
And I first was introduced to his fantasy literature, and then he did this novel that was an alternative history called Past Watch that just haunted me for its ability to deal with moral dilemma. And that's one of Orson Scott Card's strengths. And then his Ender's Game series, and he had one called, I think it was called Return to Earth series. And I just was a big fan of, that was kind of my adult reintroduction to science fiction. And then, there's so many great science fiction writers. And of course, then we could talk about movies because there's so many incredible movies. But I'm interested, what drew you to science fiction?
Well, reading Ursula Le Guin when I was younger, what I felt like she was doing is she was taking something in our society that we accepted as completely banal, and then she just toggled that switch off and said,
yes.
And what if it didn't work that way? And I love this idea that you could play out, just sort of why you were drawn to writing your own book, you could play out sort of philosophical and sort of ongoing dilemmas and in another space that was close to ours and say, okay, what if we follow this all the way to the end, what's going to happen? Yeah. And I love that ability to like creatively work through the challenges of our day and having someone guide me through, well, these are possibilities and this is what could happen and help me think about a lot of things that I hadn't thought about. Of course, for her, a lot of it, she does a lot with race. She does a lot with gender. Octavia Butler does a lot with race and environmental concerns. And so, for me, it's always been these women writing about what if we just toggled off that switch and saw what happened.
Yes.
So.
I was an English major, undergraduate and graduate school. And I wrote on the novelist Walker Percy, who had been studying in medical school, and he was a pathologist. He said when he left the world of science as his career and became a novelist, he said it still felt like he was doing science. He said he would put a person in a predicament and run it as an experiment. What would happen? What would this person do? What would this person do? And that's, I think, a fun thing both for writers, but it makes it fun for readers too.
Yeah. So I asked you if you gave me a whole list of movies that we could talk about, and we'd already covered some of them in this podcast. And so we didn't choose a sci-fi film to talk about today. We chose The Color Purple, which I just rewatched this weekend. And upon rewatching it, there were so many things that kind of popped out to me. I read the novel when I was a teenager. It was a book in our house. And then I saw the movie, I think, when I was in my 20s. So I'm curious. It's not sci-fi, but what about The Color Purple sort of spoke to you? And was it something like, the first time you saw it, or this was something that grabbed you, or is it a movie that, like, over time has begun to mean something for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first time I saw it, Heather, the opening scene of a baby being born and then taken away. I just remember thinking, this is the most heartbreaking, very often in a movie, you get to the heartbreaking scene at the end or in the middle or something, but what a way to start a film. And the sense of redemption and the sense of imperfect people just trying to survive and make their way and maybe make some huge mistakes, and most of them learn a lesson or two from them. I just felt it was a movie and a story that was full of both brutal honesty and transformative compassion and resilience, and it really touched me. So it's a movie that I've watched through the years many, many times.
Yeah. That opening, you talk about her having the baby, but just before that, the opening is two young girls playing in a field of flowers. They're singing, kind of telling each other how much they mean to each other. They're two sisters, and they come out of these high, tall flowers, and we see that one is pregnant, right? We're told she's 14 years old, and that this is her second baby, right? It's incredibly tragic circumstance she finds her in. She is living with a man. She thinks he's her father, and he's been raping her. And so it's one of those movies, you're right, it's Shakespearean, right? In that it starts with tragedy and we hope it gets to some kind of happy ending. In my first viewing, the movie felt so dark because of the brutality that the main character Celie goes through.
Yeah.
But in this viewing, I was like, oh, here's a comedic moment. Like there was sort of these slapstick moments throughout the film. There's a character named Harpo who keeps falling through the roof of every building that he happens to be on top of. How do you deal with that, or what do you think about that? One as a writer, but also as a viewer, when you see this kind of this tone switch from the tragic to the slapstick.
Yeah, that brings back some good memories. One of the things that I feel Alice Walker was trying to do in the book is to help us see as human beings people who lived in the Jim Crow era, in the aftermath of slavery, in Southern poverty, and with all of the racism that is so deeply interwoven with American history. So that part is going to be dark, and it's going to be brutally dark. And you're right, there are comedic moments that help us bear that. And it's important to remember, in dark times, people still tell jokes. In dark times, funny things still happen. Sometimes people call it gallows humor, but in the darkest of times, humor becomes a really important survival strategy. So I think it's very sharp to point that out. The other thing that I think Alice Walker does, and the film did beautifully, is it also relieves the darkness with these acts of compassion and humanity. There are villainous, despicable acts in the film, but there are also these just poignantly human acts. And so that's part of our challenge, I think, especially when you try to tell the truth about the darkness. You also have to be sure to tell the truth about compassion and truth about humor and silliness.
Yeah, this is a book about sisters. So Celie has a sister named Nettie who is kind of pushed out of their home, and she has to kind of go fend for herself. It's a book about letters. Yes. In the novel, Celie is writing letters to God, and we get a little bit of that in the beginning VO of the movie.
Dear God, I'm 14 years old. I've always been a good girl. Maybe you can give me a sign. Let me know what's happening to me.
Yeah. We realize that Nettie has been writing to Celie her whole life, and Celie's husband has been hiding those letters. It's interesting to me that he doesn't destroy the letters.
Yes.
He hides them.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
It's funny. I remember watching the movie and thinking that same thing. He kept them. And was this some tiny act of humanity on his part? Or was this kind of holding them hostage? He didn't want to lose the power that those letters gave him. And he is a complicated and tragically, despicably flawed character enough that I don't feel I know the answer to that. And more than likely it's both, right? Because so often we mix those two things mix.
Yeah.
Our worst and best qualities.
We see at the end of the novel that Nettie is coming back from Africa. She's having immigration problems, and he's the one who's going to go resolve the immigration issue so that she can come back into the country. So I would like to believe that, yes, he has this decency within him, and that it's his own sort of tragic upbringing that has made him a bully, made him someone who kind of relishes being in power over this very young girl that he marries. Again, she's 14 or 15 years old when they get married. Because we see sort of like who his father is.
Yes.
And we also see his relationship to Shug, who's really important in the film. She comes in as a surrogate sister and lover for Celie, but like we see that she treats him sort of how he needs to be treated, right? She dismisses him. And talk to me about what when you see all these different factors for the character is called Mr. by Celie. His name is Albert Johnson. What you sort of thought about when you had these reveals of information.
Yes. Well, his sort of his crush and infatuation for Shug, in some way, it's almost an adolescent innocence in some way. It's a place where he actually has a desire other than alcohol, because obviously he's doing self-medication for all of his pain. And, addiction of any sort has a way of displacing other desires. So in some ways, his infatuation with Shug feels like this one little remnant of something truly alive in him. It's what brings him to life. I think it also is telling us something about the role of the juke joint, in Black history, that when your life is pretty dark everywhere else, when oppression and threat and danger is every place else, it's interesting. There are two places you can go for comfort. One is the impromptu bar, and the other is church. You need those places, and it's kind of interesting that in the best characters in the movie and the book, they understand that there's a place for both. Obviously, the minister, Shug's father, he doesn't understand that.
And I have to say, the moment that I'm a crier. The movies are the place where I cry, and I didn't really cry when Nettie came back, but when Shug walks into the church and she's brought with her everyone from the juke joint. Yes. And they're singing that song together, right? The choir is singing, and Shug and the people from the juke joint are singing the same gospel hymn.
Yes.
See, Daddy, sinners have soul too.
And then her father actually embraces her, right? I'm getting emotional right now. That to me was just such a beautiful moment in the film, and I thought, what does charity mean? I understand historically why people set up these really rigid boundaries. Like, you cannot do this. If you go that far, then you cannot come back. I understand that on a academic level, but at the same time, my heart is breaking for Shug that every time she approaches her father, he's pushing her away.
Just so cold, yes.
And then at the end of the film, he finally embraces her, and I just feel relief for him as much as I do for Shug.
Yes, he got in touch with his humanity as a father. Yeah, obviously there's an interesting connection between this theme and this major relationship in The Last Voyage. And tell me if this makes sense to you, Heather, but if we talk about the balance of power between men and women, that's a significant issue. And let's maybe call it the imbalance of power. And then to watch the daughter, in a certain sense, heal her father by having the courage to keep taking steps toward him, until he acknowledges the genuineness of her personhood and her love, right? The one with less power who ends up having a greater power than the one with all of this other cache of social power.
Yeah. And the image of him, he's just a great big wall of a man.
That's right.
And there's this choir behind him who's singing, all women, all singing, and they're kind of singing her into this space. And then, to see him actually hold her. And I think you're right. Like the novel is very much about the imbalance of power between men and women, and the ways in which women try to get hold of some of that power, right?
Yes.
Whether it's through sisterhood or it's through like, well, you've told me that these are the boundaries. I'm going to go outside of the boundaries and you can say no more to me about this, or
Yes.
I'm going to ridicule you, right?
And Harpo himself, this sort of humorous character, he's a sort of skinny guy who thinks because he's a man, he's in charge. And we could say that an awful lot of things in human life boil down to the love of power versus the power of love. And there's these kinds of violent, dominating power we see in a lot of the male characters. And Sophia tries it too. I think my favorite scene in the movie is the scene in the store when Sophia has been so beaten down and so humiliated and so defeated, especially by this white woman who treats her like a slave.
How you today, Miss Betty?
How are you, Mr. Hamilton? Nice to see you. I hope you folks have a nice Christmas.
And then Celie comes in and just an act of humanity and kindness gives her the strength to keep going.
I meant to talk to some of the shopkeepers about it, but we could do one next year and have us a fund so they could have, some toys and some clothes and, well, a toy or two. I started taking driving.
It's a powerful scene.
And it's in contrast to earlier in the movie when Harpo feels like he's supposed to be in charge, Sophia's in charge, and he turns to Celie and says,
What I'm gonna do about Sophia?
Beat her.
and Celie's the one who says you should beat her.
Beat her, yes.
Right. And it's a shocking moment.
It's a shocking moment. She's learned the rules of the game.
Yeah.
That's such a great scene to bring up because I think all of us have felt there are times where we've done things that we're now ashamed of, but we only did it because we had internalized the rules of the social order and we hadn't developed enough conscience and enough identity and
compassion.
Critical thinking. Yeah.
Compassion for ourselves and
Yes.
compassion for the people around us.
Yes.
Well, there's a scene when Sophia comes to her and says,
You told Harpo to beat me. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my brothers. Girl, child ain't safe in a family man's. But I ain't never thought I had to fight in my own house. I loves Harpo. God knows I do. But I kill him dead before I let him beat me.
and that, of course, is Celia's trajectory. Like, she won't fight.
Yes.
She's just going to let things happen because she's surviving. She's in survival mode. Her trajectory is to finally fight at the end.
Yes.
But that scene, you're right, that scene in the grocery store when she and Sophia are finally reconciled, if you will, through an act of grace that Celia goes and she picks out all the food in the grocery store for poor Sophia.
Another scene that has a similar kind of poignancy to me, but through not what she does, but through what she doesn't do, is when she's shaving Mr.'s neck and she has the straight razor and you see her holding it right above that carotid artery.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, there's part of me that's thinking you could be excused for having a slip of the knife there.
Right.
But at the same time, this is her figuring out what's going to be her way through. And is that going to be it?
Right. The second time, Shug comes running right through the field and up to the porch and like grabs her hand to say, no, this is not gonna be the way we should do this. And then Shug says,
Celie is coming with us.
Say what?
Celie is coming to Memphis with us.
it's really beautiful. All these ideas that are being put into place of how do we love each other? How do we help each other in these desperate moments? And I think for a lot of us, we may not have necessarily such brutality in our lives, but we know what it's like to be in a family where someone needs help, and we've got to figure out how we can step in and help.
Yeah.
And this does a really good job at showing you the options.
I was thinking about this as I was working on The Last Voyage. When a writer invites someone to read a novel, he's basically making a kind of promise to the reader that if you're going to spend 12 hours reading this, I put enough work to hope that you're going to get 12 hours worth of payoff, that the experience is going to be worth it. And with a movie, obviously, it's maybe, 1.5 to 3 hours maybe. But it seems to me one of the things that time commitment does is it suspends us in the middle of things without resolving them too quickly. So feeling Harpo go through, we see him at his worst, and then we see him surviving and coming out better. We see it with Sophie. We see it with Celie. We see it, with Shug. We see it with all of these characters. That's one of the things that draws us. We need to be suspended in certain spaces to let that stuff work on us.
Yeah. And the discomfort is part of the magic, right?
Yes.
The fact that we're willing to be uncomfortable helps us understand better. One, empathetically, what other people have gone through, that history you were talking about before. But also, things are resolved too quickly. That sets us up for all kinds of later problems.
Yes, especially if we make the solutions easy and neat, because life never seems to work out easily and neatly. And then it makes us be angry at life for not working out the way the sitcom works out, right?
Right, yeah. One of the things I've heard people close to me say is, I did everything right, therefore
yes,
it should all work.
Yeah.
I should be rewarded for all of it. And the painful part often of life is it doesn't matter often whether you did everything right.
That's right. People do everything right and things go badly for them, and other people do everything wrong and they end up the richest or the most powerful person in the room, let's just say.
Right. Yes, indeed. Well, do you recommend this movie to people?
I do. Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Well, I usually say to them, it is a story that will have you thinking about American history in a different way. And it's a story that will have you thinking about human transformation in a different way.
I like that. I have to say, we have Whoopi Goldberg. She's so underrated as an actress and as a performer. She does a great job. She's going to do Ghost like a couple years later. She basically is the movie for Ghost. There's so many contributions she's made to Hollywood, and I don't know that anybody really has given her due. But in that
film, she just nails it. Oh my goodness. And then of course she shows up in Star Trek. So there we make the connection back to science fiction.
Yes. That's true. I'd forgotten she is in that. I think largely because she loves science fiction too. I think that's how she got that gig.
Right. That's right.
Thanks to Brian McLaren for speaking with me. He's such a warm presence. By the end, I wanted to ask if we could be best friends. He was so great. As I mentioned, I read The Color Purple when I was a teenager. It was my mother's copy of the book, and diving into the experiences of Celie helped me gain some perspective on my own family's tumult. But I don't think I noticed all those themes of forgiveness and redemption until the second time that I watched the film, when I was older and removed from some of the tragedies of my own family. I'm glad I could walk through that again and see those moments of grace that I'd missed before. So, how about some recommendations? If you're interested in movies about rebuilding family or building the family you never knew, you have to check out Denzel Washington's directorial debut from 2002, Antwone Fisher. It's kind of a harrowing film about what Antwone Fisher has gone through and how it continues to impact his life, but the film's themes of healing, redemption, and homecoming are only possible through a stunning performance from Derek Luke in his first feature role. He plays Antwone, and it has to be said that Denzel Washington's going to go on and direct more films, notably The Great Debaters and Fences, other great movies that you should check out. If you're interested in films about surviving as a family in totally foreign circumstances, you should see the 2020 Minari, written and directed by Lee Isaac Chung, about a young family who migrates from their Korean immigrant community in California to Arkansas. It follows the tensions between the husband and the wife, but also between the young son David and his grandma Sunja. It's a real tearjerker and gave me a deeper understanding of my husband's experience growing up in America, though his parents weren't celery farmers, just to clarify. Are you tired of me recommending sad movies? Me too. Well, if you're interested in films about sisters taking on the world, may I recommend the very recent Polite Society about two modern girls in Britain navigating arranged marriage. It's fun and sparkly and outrageous with martial arts sequences and many, many winks at Bollywood. You'll love it. Voiceover is produced by BYU Radio and edited by Spencer Boyer. I'm your host, Heather Bigley.